On this episode of Fired Up.
They are punishing these kids for doing what they had the right to do, which was to defend themselves.
Chief of the campus police actually said at a hearing, they see a guy on campus and he's not in a police uniform, they'll shoot first and ask questions later.
He and his family spent approximately $700,000 in legal defense funds before the appeals court reversed his conviction and released him from prison.
That's what this is. It's an unworkable law that doesn't make any sense, but it helped get somebody elected.
Today we're going to be talking about a very unique gun. This is the Glock.
Our panelists include Emily Miller, Marketing Director from the Gun Store in Las Vegas, Michael Giles, Retired Police Officer and Defense Attorney from Creed & Giles, Tony D., Retired Police Officer and Firearms Instructor from the Gun Store, Lieutenant Randy Sutton, Retired Policeman and Author, and your host, Bob Irwin from the Gun Store.
Thanks for tuning in and welcome to Fired Up. I'm Bob Irwin. I'll be your host for this show, coming from the Gun Store in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'd like to welcome everybody. This is our first show that's going on the KILM network in Southern California. So we will be seeing you every week at this time in those areas, and we hope you'll continue to turn in and that you like the show. On this edition, our panel discussions will involve an incident at Gonzaga University involving two students who got in trouble and got on probation for having firearms in their room that they used defensively. A new California law that on ammunition purchases that was just overturned by an appellate court in California and now is being appealed apparently to the Supreme Court in California to require ID and thumbprints and so forth to buy ammunition of undetermined type, trying to separate pistol and rifle ammunition legally in your laws. And the third involves a hiker who was attacked by a couple of dogs who fired a warning shot, and then the owner of those dogs attacked him, and he ended up in a world of hurt in that self-defense. It's a rather disturbing story in Arizona about a self-defense case. We're going to start out by talking about Gonzaga University. It's in Spokane, Washington. It's operated as a Jesuit institution. By that I mean you say they have rather strict rules, and it's a very not a party campus, as it were. Two students were studying in their off-campus room, their apartment, which is owned by the university. They had a problem with a violent homeless man who came to their door demanding things. One of the students ended up retrieving his Glock pistol, which sent the intruder running.
They'd actually already tried to give him food and a blanket. They had tried to give him what you might think a person in that circumstance would need. And he continued to push his way into their apartment. And unfortunately, in their situation, having a firearm in your university-owned apartment is actually a violation of the campus rules, and it actually can end up in expulsion.
Yeah, that's a little bit better than it is here in Nevada. Here in Nevada, you can actually get arrested for having a gun on campus.
Unless you're Mike Giles.
Well, we won't talk about that. But such a ruckus was raised by other students. Now they're thinking about changing that. But as it stands now, you can get arrested in Nevada for having a gun on campus. So.
And they can get kicked out of school.
Absolutely.
And that would be really tragic for them. This school is very hard to get into, I understand.
Yeah, but here's another example. They've made this campus a gun-free zone, and they are punishing these kids for doing what they had the right to do, which was to defend themselves. This guy was a 6-time ex-felon.
6 times.
With an extremely violent past. God knows what would have happened had he actually forced his way in there fully and done something terrible to those guys. And the campus, this wasn't even on campus. It's just owned by the campus. And so they're going to the extremes of threatening these guys with expulsion.
You know, and the sad thing is this could have been what we call a soft target. What if this had been two females without a firearm? This guy was trying to force his way in on these males, and
Who had a gun.
who had a firearm and could defend themselves. And given the size of campuses, even if this was on campus and the low budgets for security and law enforcement on college campuses, there's no way they could have responded timely if somebody called 911, much less in off-campus housing that just happens to be owned by the university. It's just really dumb luck that this guy didn't hit a room or some other place.
That was more vulnerable. Last year, we had the same problem here in Nevada. We have a ban on carrying firearms, having firearms on campus, which we all feel it makes it very dangerous. Our university here is in a particularly bad neighborhood. In the Sunday papers, they put a map of all the crimes, and it just surrounds UNLV. Years ago, it was fine, and the crowd that's moved in there has been pretty rough. A lot of crime in that area, I'm sure you'll agree, particularly on our side of UNLV. But the anti-gun politicians we have here and there in Nevada managed in our legislature to keep that as a gun-free zone, as it's a fight we're having here also. It's not just Spokane.
The chief of the campus police actually said at a hearing that if they see a guy on campus and he's not in a police uniform, they'll shoot first and ask questions later.
What an absurd thing for a
actually
law
said
enforcement
that. I heard
officer
him
to
say
say.
that.
I mean, being a former police officer, and I mean, this guy's the chief, and he's making a statement like that on at a hearing. Shoot first, and I mean, I know we're out west, but that kind of
And then when these tragic occurrences take place, where a shooter goes onto a school and kills 2, 3, 12 people, then there's this outcry against the guns instead of the outcry against being able to defend yourself against the guns. The absurdity of some of these legislations.
The crazy thing is that doesn't even have to be a shooter. I was a non-traditional student. I went to law school at night, and I was always amazed at the number of people walking around UNLV campus until midnight. It's not super well lit. A lot of these universities aren't. They have large grassy spaces. It's what we expect a university to look like, but it's also just a playground for somebody who's looking for an easy target walking down a dark alley. And at UNLV, they finally put up, after a series of fairly high-profile attacks, they finally had a security guard riding a cart around, and they have little telephones. You're supposed to go to the telephone and call, and they'll dispatch somebody. Well, those telephones are hundreds of yards apart, and it's just not an effective tool. They're taking away, and more importantly, these people lived off campus. What if you have a CCW, you carry that CCW to protect yourself and your loved ones and others around you, and your business or your education takes you onto the campus? It's not even legal to lock it up in your vehicle or in another location. So you have to make a decision. Am I going to commit a crime, or am I going to leave my gun home because I can't secure it someplace else?
Basically, what we're asking people to do is become victims. I mean, the law is supposed to protect our citizens. It's supposed to protect the students and the teachers. Instead, what we are doing is we are legislating them to be victims because they can't defend themselves, and common sense doesn't even enter into the equation.
Well, and the sad thing was, at the hearings that we had this last year, and everybody who was there, the biggest outcry wasn't necessarily from the anti-gun political action committees, although they were there. A lot of it was the educators. The professors on campus just were having an absolute conniption over the possibility, the mere possibility, that a student might be armed in their classroom.
And they'd be the first one to be screaming about the terrible victims when there is a gun crime on the campus. They'd be blaming the guns instead of teaching people and giving them the rights to defend themselves. There's some of those, especially in educators, they're so liberal in their politics that they can't see the common sense approach to self-defense.
Well, and the argument always was, well, it's academic freedom. If I'm worried about somebody having a gun, I may not actually say what I'm thinking. Okay, that suggests to me maybe you should think about what you're saying if you're worried somebody will shoot you over it. But more importantly, if the person's going to take offense to what you're saying, do you think they're going to care if there's a law that says they can or cannot have a firearm? They're going to come to class long enough to know they're mad at you, and then they're going to plot it out.
They're going to bring it anyways, whether the law says it's allowed or not.
Criminals commit crimes. And what we're dealing here, again, as Randy said, is another gun-free zone we have there. And the students are at risk. We had that terrible incident in the Reno campus, UNR, a couple of years ago. And we're not making any progress. Hopefully this time around we won't be Gonzaga, and Gonzaga will turn around looking at what happened. These young men didn't fire a shot. They pointed their gun. The guy ran away. Happens very often. Nobody got hurt. Why should they be suspended for exercising their rights, basically to live, to defend themselves? We'll be back after a couple of messages. Don't go away.
More discussion on guns, politics, and self-defense when we come back on Fired Up.
He and his family spent approximately $700,000 in legal defense funds before the appeals court reversed his conviction and released him from prison.
And we are back here on Fired Up. The state of California appeals court just overturned a new law in California that actually had been on hold since 2011. Governor Schwarzenegger signed into law a law that said for California residents, if they're buying handgun ammunition, they have to fill out a little form with their name and address and so on that dealers keep and leave their thumbprint to go on. And that law was originally held to be unconstitutional by a lower court judge immediately. It's been an appeal all this time, and here we are 2013, and the appellate court said they agreed with the lower court, that's an unconstitutional law.
The idea was to prevent people under a certain age, I believe it was 18 in this particular law, from purchasing handgun ammunition, the theory going they're not legally allowed to have a handgun, and if they can't get the ammo, they can't use the gun. The problem isn't really in discovering who the customer is or what their age is. The problem with the law is it's too vague. You can't determine what is handgun ammo anymore. Ammunition can fit in almost anything.
Right. I mean, and we get that. You go to Walmart and buy a box of 22, and is it for a handgun? Well, yeah, it could be. Could be for a handgun. Could be for a rifle. Could be for a machine gun. Take your pick. So a 19-year-old kid buys a box of 22, and for his 1022 Ruger, and all of a sudden he gives some ammo to his dad for his single 6. Now you've just, is that a violation? He committed a crime. Now he's using that ammunition he bought under false pretenses of rifle ammunition being used in a handgun. Oh my God.
But and the absurdity of another law being passed for the sake of passing laws because some politician in California wanted to get elected by a population that was overreacting to some of these gun incidents. And how is a thumbprint going to solve any issue here?
Well, the investigators find the 9mm case at the scene. They ask all the dealers who have bought, 9mm ammo recently. You match
all the thousands of dealers.
Yeah, all the thumbprints they match, and then you've got the guy, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Just like on television.
It works every
guys,
time.
I got this.
CSI effect.
How much taxpayer money
All of it.
is being spent on appealing something that was already shown to be unconstitutional, and now they're going even further. 2 courts have already declared it unconstitutional, and now they're going further with it to waste a little more of the taxpayers' money in California.
And if they can get it through, it is worthless as a crime preventative. Tony, remember years
years
ago,
ago, you
we
had to-
used to. This was federal law.
Oh yeah, you had to fill out an ammunition log.
We had
do a
this
thumbprint.
log that people would sign their name. We didn't do the thumbprints. They would sign their name with what kind of ammo they bought, and we would look at their ID to see that was their their name. And honestly, we had. This is years ago. We had 2 detectives from the L.A. County Sheriff's Office come in. There had been a shooting in L.A. where the rumor was the gangbanger had bought the ammo in Nevada. So they wanted to look through our book to see if the guy's name appeared that was the shooter. They spent 4 hours going through this book looking for names, and they got back about 8 months and figured, well,
So they were going to go to every gun store that
they
sold
left
ammunition.
to go to the next gun shop.
Did you guys match
That
the
is
IDs?
some-
too?
that
'Cause
is
this
some
guy could've
dogged
written Mickey
police
Mouse
work,
down.
though.
He could have written Mickey Mouse
Well,
down.
or he could have had a fake ID.
We looked
you
at their
know.
ID.
Oh yeah,
It's-
you had to
it's-
put the license.
But he
on
could have
their
made a fake
driver's-
ID with
Oh,
a
yeah.
laminated
That's right.
machine.
Absolutely, yeah.
Or somebody else could have bought the
Somebody
ammunition.
else bought the ammo.
But wait a minute, did they actually have a suspect identified?
They had a suspect they thought bought the ammo, and if they could show that he bought it, then I guess they could get a
Actually,
search
I
warrant
think
or
that's
something.
pretty good police work, to tell you the truth. If they had been able to match that,
But
and they had a
there's no way
suspect.
they were. First of all, if he's smart enough to come to Nevada to buy his box of 9mm and take it back to California to commit his crime, he's smart enough to have somebody he's with buy it for him on a Nevada ID and not have his name
How can you
attached to the book.
surmise that? Listen, we don't
The lawyer
we don't
in him,
catch
it's
the
the
smart
lawyer.
guys, and most of the crooks aren't really that smart.
I don't disagree, but there's also the crazy part about this is it actually was in the books. It was repealed in 1986 as part of a big federal change. They got rid of that because somebody actually wised up and said we're wasting a lot of money and time and effort on this.
Sure.
It doesn't do anything. In 1985, I spent the summer in Illinois at my grandmother's house, and we had a gopher problem. She had an old 22, Glenfield 22. I walked 4 miles into town from the farm to buy a box of 22. And
In the driving snow.
and no, it was summertime. It wasn't that bad. It was hot and muggy. Okay, it was humid, uphill both ways. I go into this little store and I walk up to the guy and I need a box of 22 long rifle. He looked at me. He says, "How old are you?" I told him I wasn't 18 yet. And back and forth, and we finally settled on. He said, "You promise this is only going to be used in a rifle?" I said, "Yes, sir." He sold me 50 rounds of 22. I went back and solved the carrot killer's problem. The long and short is, while many of the people who do this are going to be scrupulous about it, not everybody's going to be scrupulous.
No, this is another unworkable law. That's what this is. It's an unworkable law that doesn't make any sense, but it helped get somebody elected. And that's the purpose of it,
Because they did something.
because of political agendas.
Well,
did
and it's not
something.
over yet because they lost at the district court level. That judge looked at it and said, unconstitutionally vague and stupid. They lost at the...
And stupid.
Basically, that's what he said. If you read the opinion, it's pretty funny. Then they get to the appellate level 3 years later, and they said, unconstitutionally vague. We simply cannot enforce a law where even you people who came and argued for it can't tell us what the difference between a handgun ammunition and rifle ammunition is in every case. They're going to appeal this to the California Supreme Court. They're going to spend another couple of years litigating this issue because apparently California has so much money laying around that they can do this sort of thing. I don't understand it. It never was, I don't think it ever proved out to have solved any crimes. The book never, now they might have caught somebody who shouldn't have guns, bought ammunition, they could bootstrap that, but I'm not sure that that is even justifiable in and of itself.
I'm not sure if it solved the particular crime the LASO was looking to solve. I know they were rather frustrated driving up here and discovering that we sold hundreds of pages. I mean, we had to, this is without the thumbprints, you know.
How long did you let him go on for?
They went on for almost 4 hours, and they stopped. I mean, they just went, we've gone back like 7 months, because they're trying to read everybody's hand scrawl written with a pen on this book that had to be a bound book, so we couldn't change, you know, or eliminate pages. And you couldn't read, it's like waivers we have people sign here. You can't read it anyway. They could have looked right at it and not realized it was the guy's name. But, because they were continuing going, does that look like it says Smith on there? And we're going to tell these people write legibly. I mean,
That'll be a new law.
Yeah,
Must
Yeah.
must write legibly.
law.
Well, it'll have to be typed. They'll put it on the gun store. You must type the entry.
And today, I was behind the counter and two guys walked in that looked to be 18, 19 years old, maybe 20. And the kid said, do you have any 22s? This really happened today. And I said, yeah, we're limited to 2 boxes because we're short of ammunition. Okay, I'll take 2 boxes. And I said, are you over 18 or over 21? He said, I'm 19. And I said, okay. And he said, but I know that rule. It's for my rifle. And I said, okay. And he took 2 steps and he turned back to me and said, how do you know I'm not lying about what it's for? And I said, I don't. It's not my law, but what am I going to do? Tell you you're lying? I mean, you've got a rifle. A lot of people have rifles. I presume you have one. Thanks for shopping at the gun store. It's unenforceable crap that just wastes everybody's time. Hopefully in California in a year or so, the Supreme Court won't uphold it to be constitutional in California, or you guys are going to have a lot of purple thumbs every
Hopefully they
time
watch
you
this
want to buy
episode.
a shell for anything, because virtually any cartridge made today is fireable in a Thompson contender or whatever. That's just a load of crap. But that's why we have this show, to point that out to people
Point
once in
out
a while.
loads of crap.
Fun, fired up.
We have to break for some commercials. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
We'll have more fired up when we come back.
Today we're going to be talking about a very unique gun. This is the Glock.
And we are back here on Fired Up. With me at the moment is Gene Altabella. Gene and I have been friends and associates for 20 to 25 years now. We worked together at the constable's office in Boulder City for years and years. And I wanted him to come in to talk a little bit about securing your house, where we get people that need to have good locks and good safes, and basically somebody you can trust to install that sort of thing. Gene does a lot of our lock work here at the gun store, and I wanted to give him a minute to talk about that. They should secure their home.
Yeah, Bob, what a lot of people don't do is they don't worry about the back of their house. They worry about securing the front of their house. And the majority of the home invasions and break-ins that have been happening has been through the back door. They don't protect the back door like they should. And we have different ways of protecting it. If you come out to our shop, we can explain to it, or call a man out. We can come out and give you some tips on what you should do.
I've noticed that, and we've talked a lot about home invasions on the show, and that generally they'll knock on the front door, and if nobody answers, then they go around back and kick in the back door. So they use the front door just as a notice that nobody's there.
Exactly. That they'll knock on the front door. Nobody answers the door, then they'll go around the back, and most of the houses are far enough apart that the neighbors don't see what's going on. And they'll turn around and they can have all do whatever they want with the back door.
That's a thought. So if you are home alone or home at some time you don't want to answer the door, if somebody beats on your front door and you don't know who it is, I would suggest you may respond. Like, what are you doing here? What do you want? Go away. So they know the house is occupied, because otherwise, if they are criminals, they're either going to kick in the front door because nobody answers, or more likely go around and kick in the back door.
That's usually what happens. If somebody's knocking on your back door, you don't have to answer the door. Just yell hello, let them know they're there, and if they're up to no good, they're going to leave. They're not going to hang around. If they got a plan on breaking in, or plan on making a home invasion while you're there, then of course that's when you need to be armed.
Yeah, we talk about
Yeah.
that on the show a lot. What I'm trying to do is get a little bit further outer layer here so that they can, if you can get people to reinforce their doors so they can't be broken into, and then of course get a safe that you sell safes also.
Yes, we do. We sell safes, and our safes are much better grade than the ones you find in
The big box stores,
yeah, the big
Kmart,
box
we can
stores.
say them by
Yeah.
name, Kmart, Walmart.
Yeah, the chain stores, I call them. They usually sell a safe for around $400 or $500. They call it a safe, but it's not. It's just a security box. And if you're going to take, for example, an AR-15 that's all tricked out, that's worth about $1,500 to $2,000 or more, and you're going to put it in a $500 safe and expect to secure it, you're only fooling yourself.
You're going to lose your stuff. This is unfortunately very prevalent, and if you're about to go out and think about securing your house, getting a safe, or having somebody look at your house to see if they can fortify it a little bit, I would strongly suggest you call Gene. Like I said, I've known the guy for years. He does good work. Hey, with me at the moment is Nicole, who is the young lady who does our reservations for groups and bachelor parties, bachelorette parties, who's going to give you a little background on what we do if you have a business group or a party, a reception that you want to have come to the gun store to shoot. Explain what you do, Nicole.
I am the VIP coordinator here at the gun store, so basically I book all of our reservations and I help host corporate events. We have private VIP ranges where we hold most of our events, and we also have corporate space, so if you want to host your actual meeting, you can do it here at the gun store as well. You can book online or you can contact me directly.
Lots of people do. We have some really interesting photographs here of some of the bachelor and bachelorette parties that have been here, everybody in costume. But you don't have to wear a costume, but you can call in on our computer system and talk to Nicole and get your program set up. We look forward to seeing you.
Don't forget, you get a free holiday gift bag with each VIP gift purchase. To receive, be sure to include the recipient's name and specify that it's a gift, and we'll make sure to send it their way.
Hi, this is Tony D with the Gun Store in Las Vegas. Thanks for watching Fired Up with Bob. Today we're going to be talking about a very unique gun. This is the Glock. Back in 1982, a guy named Gaston Glock, an Austrian guy, designed the first polymer-framed, highly successful gun. Up to that time, there were some plastic polymer guns out there, but the Glock was the quintessential prototype that really came into being. Mr. Glock never had any prior gun designing experience, which was kind of unusual when he came out with this. He did have a lot of experience with plastics, however. So he used a lot of high-strength polymer in it. Now, the Glock is a very unique firearm. It fires what they call a safe action, which is really a modified double action. The striker is not back when the gun is fired. When you pull the trigger, this is being the striker here, the striker will go back, or the firing pin, and when the trigger pull is complete, the trigger bar will drop down and the striker will go forward, firing the gun. So it's basically like a modified double action pistol. The only unique feature on it, or very unique feature on it, is the safety. The safety is mounted right there in front of the trigger, so when you place your finger on the trigger, you actually disengage the safety. There's other built-in safety devices in the gun. There's a drop safety in it, and there is also a disconnect to safety to prevent it from going full auto. The Glock has what they call a tenifer finish, which is a very, very hard finish, and it is in 65% of law enforcement agencies in the United States utilize the Glock. So it's a very, very popular gun. In 2007, there was 5 million of them manufactured. So it's a very popular gun. This one's in 9mm. This is their full-size Glock 17. They make a model 19, which is a mid-size. They make a 26, which is a smaller 9mm. And then they make the 40 calibers. again, in the large, small, medium, and large configuration to make the .357 SIG caliber, the .45 caliber, 10 millimeter caliber, and they make a .380 caliber that is not available in the United States. They also make the Glock 18, which is a full auto selective fire one, and we have one of those also for rent if anybody wanted to try it. I am not a big favorite of the Glock. I'm not a fan of it. I'm more of a traditional type guy. I like wood and steel, and the Glock, I cannot get used to the trigger. I really don't like the trigger pulling. I like a nice, dry, snap, hard, crisp trigger, and the Glock doesn't give me that. Other thing with a Glock, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but that is one ugly gun. I'm sorry, that's dog ugly. But again, it's in the beauty of the beholder. The village idiot can fix a Glock. That's one thing nice about them. They're very simple. All the parts are drop-in. In fact, when you go to the Glock Armor School, they give you a punch. And basically, that's the main tool you use to totally disassemble the gun. There's a few other smaller tools you can use to get into for other things, but it's a very simple gun. The parts are inexpensive to buy and also to install. They came in 4 generations. They're up to generation 4 now. This is a Gen 3 model. It has the Glock rail. You can mount a light or a laser sight on it. The Gen 4 ones are even more sophisticated. Very, very pleasant shooting gun, very reliable, and like I said, they're extremely popular. I'm just not a fan. I have a Glock myself. I have a Gen 1 myself, and I used to do testing for Laser Max, and I had to buy it because I had to test their laser device in it. And I shoot the gun once a year just to reinforce my dislike for it. But it's a pleasant gun to shoot, and we're going to pop a few rounds through it. One thing with the Glocks, they're very high capacity. The Glock 17 is a 17-round capacity in the magazine, plus 1 round in the chamber will give you 18 total. So compared to the old police officers that were carrying revolvers back in the day, where you had 6 rounds in the gun and maybe 12 rounds on your loop, you've got a couple magazines. You can tremendous amount of firepower. You have a tremendous amount of firepower there. We're going to insert the magazine, slide forward, and like I said, it's a very pleasant gun to shoot. Not much recoil, and it is very accurate. Slide stays back on the last shot. I'm not a big fan of it, but again, we all drive different cars. We all carry different guns.
Hi, I'm Mike Rogers from the Gun Store. Time for Moron of the Week. We're going to show a bunch of people doing dumb things so that you won't. Seek good instruction from a good instructor.
Hey, are you ready? Go!
That young man was shooting a rifle designed to shoot elephants at close range. His instructor, despite the fact that he had a cool hat, did not set him up for success, hence the negligent discharge. He thought the gun was empty. His hands went to the trigger. It's like a black hole in there that'll always happen if you let it. Get good instruction, practice good safety practices. Always handle firearms as if they're loaded.
Television and movies have sometimes given us a mistaken impression about what happens at a shooting scene. Television and movies have sometimes given us a mistaken impression about what happens at a shooting scene. In every movie, somebody who gets shot, and it's a good shooting, the law enforcement officers arrive, they talk to the individual, they pat them on the back and tell them they did a good job. Well, this simply isn't reality. Even if the first officer on the scene believes you acted completely and totally appropriately, they're going to treat any shooting incident as a potential homicide or homicide until they have proven differently. That means you will be detained. You may not be detained in the back of a squad car, you may not be handcuffed, but you will be detained by law enforcement for purposes of their investigation. And they need to investigate the scene to exonerate you after you've used lethal force in defense of yourself. The important thing to remember is that the officers are doing their job, but their job requires that they be a little bit pushy at times. Don't take offense if the officers don't necessarily believe everything you say. Remember, police officers have a challenging job to do. They must investigate, and they can't jump to conclusions even if when they arrive they believe you're in the right. You will be detained, and it will take some time. If you act appropriately, everything will work out, and you will be in a good defensible position if at some point a civil suit or a criminal charge is brought.
Hey, we are back here on Fired Up. We're here at the Rocky Mountain Gun Show at the South Point Hotel Casino in Las Vegas. With me is Ian Jones. He has a really interesting device that they sell for homeowners to keep their guns safe and from other people and from burglars.
Hi, Bob.
Tell
Thanks.
me what it is.
So my name's Ian Jones. I'm out of Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm a regional distributor for the Monster Vault. Now, the Monster Vault's a beautiful idea because it's designed to fit underneath a standard steel frame bed. Now, most people who are in the market for safes, this is a great solution for them because they don't necessarily want to have a big ugly safe in the bedroom or the living room.
Right.
If there's a lady in the house, she doesn't want to have this great big safe in the closet taking up that space.
I know that problem already, trust me.
You're familiar with it. And as for you, you don't really want the big safe in the garage because it's not that convenient. Now, floor space in your home is a valuable commodity. The fact that this takes up none of it speaks for itself, and it is worth its weight in gold for that reason alone. It's 7 inches high, 48 inches wide. So the other benefit to this besides going under the bed is at 48 inches wide, it'll fit in the back of full-size SUVs or pickup trucks. If it'll fit a piece of plywood, it'll fit this safe.
Right.
So it's got a keypad lock. We have it set up like that, and you can open it. The drawer slides all the way open. As you can see, we have a few props in here. There's plenty of space for your full-size rifles, lots of ammunition, your jewelry, your hard drives, because as you know, it is a gun safe that holds long guns, but it's for valuables, not just for guns. Now, the nice thing about this, 4 AA batteries will run you about 3 years. You can do a combination between 3 and 8 numerals and then the letter. But if the battery ever goes dead because you're out of town or you're negligent, it comes with 2 barrel cylinder locks, so you can get into it manually. Now
This is incredible. I mean, I'm amazed nobody's ever thought of that before, because exactly right. It'll fit under the bed.
One of the statistics that the FBI has come up with is that one of the first places a criminal will look is under the bed, because people keep their guns under their bed.
Well, yeah,
so
but
that's
not
why
in
this
that.
not in that. You know, it's pre-drilled holes in the bottom, allow you to bolt it to the floor. It's 140 pounds empty, but once you bolt it to the floor, it's negligible what the weight is, and it'll hold anything up to a 30-inch barrel shotgun. So that'd be a really big, long bird gun.
And people can get a hold of your company and order one of these online or
Absolutely.
call your company.
You can go to monstervault.org and order one online for $6.99, or you come down to the Rocky Mountain Gun Shows in Las Vegas about 4 times a year and buy one from me at $5.99.
$100 off if you come into the show to pick it up. Highly recommended. These are really good idea if you're having problems storing your stuff at home. This is a great device. Thank you very much, Ian. I appreciate you talking to us. Hopefully get some sales off it. This is an amazing little device.
All right, well, thank you.
Thanks. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away. Welcome back to Fired Up. This story is one of self-defense. We address self-defense issues here on Fired Up. This one has I would guess, the worst possible outcome all the way around. A hiker, his name is Harold Fish, was hiking by himself in the mountains in Arizona, ran across, as he came toward the top of a hill, 2 dogs that were barking at him, large dogs. They ran down the hill toward him. He drew a handgun he was carrying, fired a shot in the air, which scared the dogs off. He looks up again, and the dog's owner is charging down the hill at him. He fired at that guy who was yelling, "I'm going to kill you." He's yelling back, "I didn't shoot your dogs." They ran away. The guy continued to charge. He shot the guy, killed him. That scenario is basically what happened, and it sounds like a self-defense case to everybody here.
The aftermath of this is really tragic, actually. The state of Arizona convicted him of second-degree murder and sent this 57-year-old school teacher with not a blemish on his record. He had no criminal history. He had a wife. He had 7 children, and they convicted him of second-degree murder.
He spent 3 years in prison during the appeal process after the conviction. He and his family spent approximately $700,000 in legal defense funds before the appeals court reversed his conviction and released him from prison.
A little more details, I guess.
All right, so it's tragic. He was hiking up the local mountains. He hears dogs barking. He comes up to the top of a hill, and there's an abandoned car that this person was obviously using as a campsite. The dogs charge down at him. He pulls out a 10 millimeter, right, big gun, and he fires a warning shot, which worked. One dog stood his ground, didn't come any closer. The other dog ran away. Now here comes the owner, screaming, running down the hill, screaming, "I'm going to kill you! I'm going to kill you!" And as we said, I didn't kill your dogs. I didn't. Whatever happened at that moment. Is, one guy's dead, one guy's not. Whatever happened there, he shot him and killed him.
He fired several times. He fired several rounds
Right.
at this guy who's charging at him, screaming that he's going to kill him. This is, to me, it was a clear case of self-defense, and the police who investigated it said it was self-defense. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't the police that charged him after doing an investigation. And, police aren't shy about charging people. So if they believed that this was a case of self-defense and didn't want to prosecute, then the travesty here is that there was a political motivation behind charging him by the district attorney's office.
Well, whether it was political or not, it certainly was the county prosecutor who decided to pursue charges here. I know that I see it all the time. I'll read a police report where the officer arrests somebody for one thing and they're charged with 5 or 6 counts that the officer didn't even arrest him on because some prosecutor read the same report and said, "Oh, I can get this and I can get that and I can get this other thing." In the end, it probably was politically motivated. I don't know what this prosecutor's position was, but every time somebody tells me, "Oh, well, the police told me I'm going to be fine," I say, has the court or the prosecutor said we're not going to pursue charges? Because until that happens, you could be in the same situation he was in here, like we talked about. It took 3 years in prison, 57-year-old former teacher, 3 years in prison had to be an eternity for him.
Oh, and look at the lives that it destroyed, and the economic realities of the entire family being destroyed economically, and then after he gets out of jail, he dies from going through this type of enormous stress. So I hope that prosecutor feels really good about himself.
I didn't put an outline, but his family, of course, jumped in. They originally had assigned a public defender who just kind of blew it off and said, "No, you got a great case. It was self-defense." And whether the animal rights people got in there and yelled because he fired at the dogs, which he said he didn't, and he didn't hit them anyway, or the county is worried about hikers shooting people and it looked bad to the community, he ends up getting convicted, and the family went to hire a murder defense lawyer. And that's, if you kill somebody and it's questionable, that $700,000 number probably applies. This is a big buck thing.
My guess is the breakdown on this would be something like $200,000 or $300,000 on the initial trial, and the remainder of it on appeals are incredibly expensive. You have to pay for everything unless you can prove indigency, and appellate attorneys make lots of money, far more money in some cases than the trial attorney does. I can understand why his attorney was looking at these facts and saying, this is crazy. This is an absolute case of self-defense. I don't think you have anything to worry about. It's just one of those crazy things, and we say it all the time. When you get into a shooting, if you're charged with a crime, the people in the jury are likely to not think like you, be like you. They've never shot anybody, most likely, because if they have, then the prosecution's going to kick them off, and the defense is going to try and keep them. And 12 people are going to hear the facts. The trier of fact is going to decide what really happened. And in this case, they clearly felt that he had committed a crime, and they put him in prison.
And if I remember, if I read the case properly, this guy had a CCW permit.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he was legally armed. He came up with a reasonable explanation for what happened. The totality of the circumstances with this guy living out of his car, sicking his dogs on him, should have shown that to a jury, and then to then stick him in prison and destroy this man's life is nothing short of disgusting.
It looks to us that way, but visualize this to the ordinary citizen. The guy he shot was unarmed, was living out there. He had no money, and his dogs barked, and he scared the dogs away, pulling this huge gun. The guy charges down either because he's nuts or to defend the dogs, and Harold Fish shot an unarmed man.
I wish we had a few more facts here. Like, what was the criminal history of the guy who got shot here? This is one of the things that I wish we had more information.
I would love to pull the transcript from this trial and see if the officers who went on media and said, we think it's a justifiable shooting, what their comments were, their testimony was at the trial, because they would have to testify. You can't have this incident without having a police officer come in and set the foundation for the evidence that's coming in.
Maybe that was it, that the police did talk to the media and said that it appears to be a self-defense shooting to us, and that got somebody in the prosecutor's office pissed off, basically, that you're taking our job, you're not supposed to tell the public it's okay.
It could be that. It could be as simple as prosecutors have an incredible amount of power, and if this prosecutor doesn't like CCW, doesn't like firearms, we don't know any of the other components of this, age and ethnicity and things. There could have been a whole lot of things at play in this case, but ultimately this county prosecutor made the decision.
But it's surprising because it's Arizona, and Arizona is probably one of the most gun-friendly states in the whole union.
But there's some anti-gun people down there.
True, in the more metropolitan areas, but I don't know where this actually took place. But like you said, it could be a prosecutor with a grudge against the police department. There's all kinds of
Let me ask you a
scenarios that
question.
could.
You guys probably know this a whole lot more than I do, but I've been hearing a lot of advertisements for CCW insurance to be able to defend yourself. These insurance companies will take out a policy in case you do use your weapon in defense of yourself.
NRA offers a policy right now if you're involved in a shooting, it's a liability.
Well, I think we're probably going to wind up talking about that at some point, but you've actually just stumbled onto something that's about a 30-minute conversation all in and of itself. In the end, whether he had the insurance or not, his family stepped up. They spent a bunch of money, and unfortunately, it didn't prolong his life substantially.
We have to break it right there. We are Out of time, I will tell you on this case, if you want to find out more details of this outrageous case, the man's name was Harold Fish, F-I-S-H. You can look it up on the internet. Harold Fish in Arizona shooting. And there are reams of transcripts from the case, every detail. And what we're telling you here happened is really what happened. Get a good lawyer if you get involved in one of these. You never know. We're going to be back next week at the same time in the same station. Thank you for watching very much, and we'll be back.